for example, the initial stage of one north. And also, I'm also one of the 3 planner architects that designed the Suzhou Industrial Estate in China. So after doing 11 years of town planning, I actually quit because I wanted to always see the next stage of my plan. So I went to the Singapore Land Authority to carry out land administration. I mean, if you have questions about land administration, you also can ask me. I did about 15 years of land administration. My expertise in particular is sale of land as well as government land sale. And then finally, when they see that I'm experienced, they asked me to come to CLC to be a trainer. So this is my role, basically to train locals as well as some international participants about the Singapore livability story. How we rose from developing country to become a more livable country. We are set up in 2008, CLC. Actually, it's also a bit of coincidence because in 1990s and early 2000s, Singapore government have been doing a lot of training, especially staff from India and China. And we realized that we've been providing a lot of training for our international visitors. But the people who are doing the training, they were retirees, and most of them are getting older and older. And in fact, a few of them are, they are too old. Okay. So they realized a lot of knowledge is being lost. So they formed CLC to quickly harness all the knowledge. So they interview all those people that are really old, find out what they did in the past, what are the policies, what are the consideration. I think we have about 300-400 oral interviews of these people, including our previous Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, maybe his Deputy Prime Minister, Goh Keng Swee. So we have actually a lot of such interviews. And then after we have all these interviews, with all the people who have done all the work in Singapore for how we solve our water problem, how we solve our housing problem, how we solve our cleaning the environment problem, how do we solve our planning problem, various urban systems, we start to write books. So you'll find that actually we write a lot of books. If you go to our website, a lot of this information are available online. So even if you miss some part of the briefing, you want to know a bit more, you can go to the CLC website. I can give to Mr. Poon the email address. You all can actually read some of this publication, and you will know better than me after reading on the book, the whole story. Okay, so basically that. These are the people we work with. I think if you are in Singapore, you know that this on the left hand side are all the major government agencies in Singapore. We try to talk to them to find out what's the latest challenges, and also to find out some of the past. Why do they do certain things, certain policies, so that we know. All this information will go into our research. And when we go to our research, basically any research information, knowledge that we have, if we do not share it, it's wasted. You know, it's like those old movies where you see the Chinese movies, sometimes they have the Kung Fu master, you know, all the skill they have, but if they don't pass it on,
that's gone.
It's gone, you know. So we have, because of that, 3 areas of spreading the knowledge. One way is knowledge platform, where we actually conduct a lot of lectures. So we tell public servants, Singapore civil servants, they can come and we give them the latest knowledge. We'll invite people from, say, Holland to talk about how they do reclamation, how they do cycling. We'll get US after they have the Hurricane Sandy. How do they design the buildings so that it's more resilient to hurricane? So we get speakers from all over the world to come and talk. And the knowledge platform. Advisory is actually where we carried out more formal training work. So for example, actually I'm a Jakarta expert now. So one of my job is to provide a bit of consultancy to Jakarta. And like for example, when the previous governor Ahok wanted to carry out some improvement works to his city, he actually came to Singapore and said he wanted to learn about how we carry out planning as well as building control. So we actually managed to convince our MFA to finance some of the costs, and then we actually sent some expert there, to carry out a course about how to make things more sustainable and how to carry out planning and development control. And after that, we also brought in about maybe about 60 people at different times to learn about Singapore planning as well as development control. Of course, you must remember we are the trainer, we are not the aid giver, so we always have to find someone to provide the aid, and then we'll provide the training to this. So the latest round, when Governor Ahok left, now there's a new governor called Governor Anis. That is where we actually carry out new training for them, which is congestion pricing, how to do ERP in Jakarta. Okay. Of course, we try to work with as many agencies as possible. You can see some places like Microsoft, Shell. Some of them, they have a lot of research, and we try and keep current with all the latest. And of course, we work with the universities as well, so that our information that we have remain relevant. Okay, here are example of some advisory board. You may not know who they are, but I think that's a quick one. Dr. Liu Taiker was actually a chief planner of Singapore in the 80s and 90s. So he had actually designed most of our new towns. So when you see the various new town when you visit and stuff like that, it's him. He's the one that helped design it. He's the one that operationalized it. I give you an example. When the British were building our public housing, for about 40 years they only built like a few thousand units, like maybe 4,000 or 5,000 units. But under him, within the first 10 years or 20 years, we actually built almost like 500,000 units. So it's a different dimension. And of course, we try to get people who are former minister or someone that are good engineers from the private sector to be our board members. We also have included a lot of people, like for example, this was former Minister of National Development. We have former head civil service. This guy, for example, Pillay, a lot of you wouldn't know him. He is, for example, the former PS of MND, Ministry of National Development, in the 90s. But he's more famous for one other thing. He actually helped Singapore convert a 17th airline to SIA. So he's the one that built up SIA, for example. So again, we try and get all these people with all the knowledge to share with us and to help us. And so on. So we have a lot of people. Most of them you will not know, but they are the people that, for example, help clean up our river. For example, Singapore River used to be really dirty. They help clean it up. So we try and get all these people. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we write a lot of books. So all these are available free. So just go to our website. And basically, this part I continue. Basically, is from research we go to capability development. Then we one way, actually, one of my main job is also to teach all the local public servants, because a lot of new people, all the young people do not know what we did 30 years ago. So because they don't know what we did 30 years ago, even if they want to make changes, they do not know what are you changing. So this is where I would actually carry out a 5-day course and brief about maybe 60 people, 2 classes. And basically, I do about 12 classes a year. And basically to teach the new generation of public servants, civil servants, how Singapore solve the various problems. Of course, we have my colleague will do the international program. That means every year they have like 3 or 4 programs that they invite international participants or cities to come to Singapore and learn. Basically, whatever I covered is a very executive summary. Then in the course itself, they will actually spend 5 days to teach everything in more detail. Okay. So here are examples of what we do. So we also have an executive program. We actually train the people, those called high performers. Those people who are up and coming in Singapore. So we will put them into the executive age program, the executive development growth program. It's a 3 weeks course, including 1 week overseas, where we actually bring them out to show them different aspects. Maybe we know that Seoul is doing something exciting, we will bring them to Seoul. We will say that Japan is carrying out some redevelopment of the port. Singapore is about to carry out some redevelopment of the port. So we'll bring them to Japan or Rotterdam or Copenhagen to see cycling and all these things. We also have another program where we actually carried out for those people who are in power. That means they are the directors, senior directors, deputy CEOs of our government agencies. So the number 2, number 3 person in those agencies. We also train them out in a 4-week program, provide them a basis of, so that they have understanding. Because every department usually know what they do very well, but they do not know what other people does. But when we bring them together, we actually tell them what other people does very well, so that, and some of the history of their policy, so that they know each other better. And I think another important aspect is, of course, like you guys in the group, right? Keep your network, keep talking to each other, build up your relationship, because over the next how many years you can share a lot of information, and we try to do the same for these people. Okay, I won't cover too much on the international program, so we actually carry out a lot of consultancy. So, for example, Andhra Pradesh is asking, they are redesigning their capital city. There will be a new state in India, and then they are building a new capital city. So, formerly under G2G, their PM have approached our PM, and then in the end, this is one of the joint project. And of course, Sri Lanka as well. And we carry a lot of partnerships with all the agencies. I think I won't go through, most of them are Singapore as well as international agencies, like the Urban Land Institute and various others. Okay, so I'll just go along this. Actually, the other thing that we do this July, we are having a World City Summit where we invite cities and mayors to come in. So it's actually quite a grand event, and this is where cities have made very dramatic improvement. We have given them the Lee Kuan Yew City Prize for basically doing very livable and sustainable development. Okay, so now part 2 basically is how Singapore become livable, which is what you all want to know. So I will just come through. Basically, some of the things we covered in the past, and a lot of young people especially, but none of you guys don't look that young, because sometimes I have 20 something, 20-year-olds, 22-year-old, first job in their life, and basically they just want everything clean slate. They don't care about the past, they just want to throw their ideas out anything, and then they think that's the best way to solve all the problem. So here I try to tell them that actually sometimes it's important to know history. And basically, a lot of times in the work, a lot of time, whatever we do is relevant. At least the theory of it. You know, like for example, in the past we have worked well with certain community. Now we should still work with the community. It's just that the community last time they may do pamphlets, they may do exhibition. Now they may do social media. You know, so that is the same concept, but sometimes it's just a different mode of doing things. Okay, Singapore's in the 50s and 60s. We are a developing country in that time. We are really poor. We have slums everywhere. We have people throwing everything into the river. The river is a sewer. Everybody will throw. Before there is a GPS in Singapore, there is no GPS. You smell the river, you know, okay, there's the river and I need to go there. You know, so everybody use the river for navigation because you can smell it for about 1 kilometer away. Okay. Okay, so we have a lot of funny situations like floods at the same time as not enough water. A lot of similar situations with a lot of developing countries. We have slum, we have pollution, we have a lot of haphazard things, and surprisingly, traffic jam.
At that day?
Yeah, even at that day. So in the past, Singapore, there's about 1.2 million people squished into just mainly the central area. The rest of the island is not occupied, and everybody is squeezed into the same. Even though our population then was only 1/5 of today, the congestion is pretty bad because everybody is squeezed in the southern part of Singapore.
I see.
Yeah, and in fact, even 1947, we are first. United Nations sent a team of experts to Singapore and rated us the worst slum in the world at that time, 1947.
1947?
Yeah, we're the worst slum in the world. Modern Singapore, I think you all know how it is. Basically, we have done pretty well in some areas. I don't think we are there yet, but we can always learn from all of you as well. But basically, we in some areas we have done pretty well, and I think today most of the material are covering how we have improved. Just some statistics. Singapore is really small. If one good thing is that we are so small an island, if the pilot were to sneeze, they will miss Singapore. You know, so especially in wartime, that's pretty good. We are only like 50 kilometers long and maybe about 30 kilometers wide. We are only 719 square kilometers. Okay, there are some lakes that are much bigger than us. Okay, what is significant is our population density is about 7,700. Maybe not the densest, but maybe top 10 densest, including all the major cities
in the world.
Yeah. Another problem that a lot of people do not realize that because a lot of time people come and visit Singapore, they see Singapore as a city, no different from Hong Kong, no different from New York, or no different from London, a city. You know what I mean? They don't see Singapore as a country. But as a country, we have a lot more problems because we have to provide land for a lot of things. Like for example, water. How do we get enough water to feed the people? How just even have one airport? You'll be surprised, one airport in Singapore, how much land is constrained or height. Most other countries will just leave rural land next to the airport or low-rise industry next to the airport, and they don't have to worry about the height control. While in Singapore, we have a lot of constraints. So examples, we have to take up land for defense, take up land for defense, for water storage, for industry. We have to reserve land at low density for culture and heritage. We have to set aside land for infrastructure. For example, roads take up 14% of Singapore's land, which is good. It's such a big use of land. So that's why we can see that Singapore is always trying to restrict car ownership and restrict the amount of road, because compare, you know, how much land Singapore have, so much land is taken up by roads. For example, most people do not know, but that's how constrained Singapore is. The only place that's not very constrained is this part. The rest of it is always constrained. So sometimes when you go and visit Singapore, the public housing, it looks very nice, but it looks a bit crammed together. Not because we are lousy designers, but because, for example, a lot of land are covered by these two airports. And you know, then the airport expert will say, if the jet plane, one engine is damaged, then they must fly at a certain height, then another engine damaged, then must fly then they have draw a lot of circles, then in the end, for example, all the lands here are 64 meter AMSL, which is about 16 to 18 stories at most. So that's why you can see a lot of houses all start at 16, 18 stories, and you only see the super high rise in the southern part of Singapore. Again, to give you a scale, this is a map of Manhattan. You can see Long Island here. This is New York itself, New York City.
Yep.
But the water supply for the New York City comes from these three green areas. And just one of the green area here is 46 times the size of Singapore to provide water for New York. So this is a scale.
46 times
the size of Singapore. Yes. So you can see that actually you guys, all of you are in a better situation than Singapore. So whatever we can do, you all can do better because you have got more land. Okay, so simple lessons I can talk about it. A lot of time people will say, no, especially when I talk to Singaporeans, they'll say, Singapore, the military want land for military training. Then they need to take up some land. And most of the time they say it's not enough. Just to give an example, just to train some of our military training. In Australia, the training ground for our military is 10 times the size of Singapore. Just, you know, this is what is telling me and how constrained we are. So in that sense, I want to encourage you in that sense that whatever we do, you all can do better because you have a lot more land. You know, a lot of time we are actually forcing ourselves to put everything in a very small footprint. Is Singapore livable? Okay. I know some of the young people in Singapore, because they're used to Singapore, they went to Australia, you know. Singaporeans are quite well traveled, they go other countries like Melbourne, Sydney, and then they'll say, oh, Singapore is not livable, very dense, very crowded. So we have to do what is an international study. So based on some international study, we are generally quite livable. We have quite good ratings. Basically, I'm trying to, here's where I try to convince Singaporeans that actually we are quite livable despite our high density. And we have done well in some aspect. I'm not saying that we are perfect, but there's a lot of things that we need to learn. But we also need to measure where ourselves is. One thing also we learn is, do we want to come up with our own index? We realize that if we were to spend research, spend millions of dollars liaising with Chiang Mai, liaising with Bangkok, liaising with every major city in the world, few hundred cities, every year update the information, then after that find a set of criteria so that Singapore is number 1, number 2. We realize that people in Singapore don't believe. So we always rely on international standard rather than waste all the time and effort. So that's what we do. Okay? So Singapore today, our GDP is pretty good, about 73K. Singapore money, maybe about 60,000 US. Our employment rate is quite low, it's 2.2%. I think what's significant is 90% of Singaporeans, almost 91% Singaporeans own their own homes. Okay, we have 100% access to clean water. Okay, remember the statistic that we did earlier? We compiled various statistics. We did one thing that other people didn't realize. We put it over a factor over density. Okay, because we want to find out. We know we are land short. If we compare with every other city, on their terms, we do not know how good we are. So we decided to do based on density, and we realized that actually the top cities are all very low density, and only Tokyo, London, and Singapore are high density and livable. So something that we use all the statistics from other people, and we just have this ratio of density to know. We used to be somewhere here. Okay, we used to be here, and we have traveled this path. Okay. So Hong Kong is an age of liberty. You see, if any of you visit Hong Kong, you see some part where the new district are very nice, and some of the old areas, very old areas, actually the maintenance is quite bad, and there are some things. So it's almost at the age of livability. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, so how do we know what is livable? So we come up with this principle because in order to achieve it, we need to understand it. So how do we understand it? This is very simple. Imagine this triangle as an iceberg. Okay, like Titanic, the iceberg. Okay, but don't think of the bad aspect of the Titanic. But basically, the iceberg is what you can see on top, and then there is a big chunk of ice below. So that's what the iceberg is. Okay, so when you look at Singapore, when you come to Singapore, what you can see is the quality of life, the sustainable environment, and the economy. Okay, and then what you can't see is the thing that's supporting it. So we have analyzed. So remember, we talked to all these old Singaporeans who have built up Singapore, and this is so-called the success factor we have found. Okay, so basically, what is obvious to us or to any city, okay, is the quality of life, how competitive the economy, and how sustainable it is. The supporting infrastructure, supporting policies, all are not included. You can't see. Okay, and I should go through some of them. So basically, in order for a city to be successful and livable, you need to have a competitive economy. Okay, I give you a very simple example. I know about a few years ago, there's this talk, right? The happiest place on this earth is Bhutan, right?
Bhutan, right.
Right? Everybody knows this built. Then we see all the nice picture of the mountains and stuff. We say it's very livable. Okay? But I ask you another question. Have you know any relative or any friends that say I'm migrating to Bhutan to live there?
No.
No. Everybody was saying that they're going to Australia, going to US. Why? They're not happiest place on this earth, you'll find that actually one key component, no matter how idealistic we are, we need to survive. So you need to have a competitive economy. And usually you'll find that most of the time your relatives or your friends, when they migrate, they go to somewhere where they can find a job. So in Bhutan, probably it's much harder to find a job. That's why, despite being a very happy place, nobody is migrating there because of this situation of being competitive in the job. So this is an illustration of actually, like it or not, you know, we always feel that, you know, the government always try to tell us be more competitive, be more productive, and you always feel the stress of a competitive economy. But actually, what you realize is that without a competitive economy, your city is not livable because no one wants to stay there or remain there. Yeah. And another thing that we want to highlight is the importance of inclusive growth. If there's not enough inclusive growth, you see a lot of situations like Arab Spring, you know, where people are seeing the rich are getting richer, the poor are barely surviving, and then plus inflation, the poor cannot survive, and that's where they have a lot of unhappiness. Singapore used to be a port city when we are discovered in the 1819. We are essentially a port, and we have been thriving as a port under the British rule for a long time. All the way until World War II, we are always a port. A very simple economy that we have is we get raw materials from surrounding countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, rubber, tin, spices, bring to Singapore, and then we export to the world and make a profit. And sometimes if we can, we improve the product a bit. Say for example, we get in rubber, latex from Malaysia, we sometimes make a tire, then make some money and then we sell. That's how Singapore used to survive in the past. Unfortunately, in World War II, after World War II, when the countries starting to go independence, including Singapore and Malaysia, and when the British left us, okay, because the British they employ a lot of people when they are in there. When they left us, I think we lost like 30,000 jobs. For a country at that time, actually it's very significant. So we realized we need to find lots of jobs, and it's not just jobs, but lots of jobs, because a lot of people are not are unemployed at the time. So we look for very labor and intensive manufacturing.
I see.
But one strategy that I would like to highlight, especially the Singaporeans, I highlight that actually in the past the government is actually quite innovative, because you must remember this era in the 50s is the era of independence.
Right.
Every country will say, I'm independent, I'm free from my colonial master, I'm free from France, I'm free from UK. You know, the first thing they do is they reject Western companies, and then they build up their own SME. Everybody does that, but Singapore, actually, the politician of the day and the public service of the day decided to opt for MNC. So MNC is being very gutsy in the move. I mean, instead of throwing away the colonial master, they actually went back to business with them. And that's how they managed to get themselves a lot of employment. And we are quite lucky too, because in the 60s also, in the era of communism, so the Western people are very worried that communism will come down. So they become, they were supporting our economy and make sure the MNC, when they come to Singapore, are doing well, so that we can show the example that capitalism works. So we also enjoy a bit of this type of political tension. Subsequently, when Singapore becomes richer, we are no more cheap. And if we are no more cheap, how do we compete with the world?
Middle income trap.
Yeah, so we cannot compete on land. We cannot give free land, for example. We cannot give cheap labor. So you'll find, why would anyone want to invest in Singapore? So we actually learn to look for capital intensive. Capital intensive as in, we go for products that you need lots of money to build. Like for example, a wafer fab plant. We cannot offer them cheap land, we in fact offer them expensive land, but we say, we design our infrastructure so well, there are 2 substations leading so that you never have a blackout or brownout. You always have electricity. We give you 2 water supplies so that in the end, your wafer fab plant will have plenty of water which is needed. So we use thing, and once we sink it, say something big, like a wafer fab plant or a petrochemical plant, all the small industry all come in together with them, and that's how Singapore survived in the 80s and 90s. Okay, now we are at the knowledge economy. Frankly speaking, everybody is going for knowledge economy. I'm not too sure how Singapore will do. So we just have to encourage the new bunch of Singaporeans to be innovative and take up decisions, sometimes decisions that are not very popular, so that Singapore can still thrive. Okay, sustainable environment, I think most people know. In order for a city to be livable, you need it to be sustainable. Then it is having enough space, land, energy to meet long-term need, having good quality of air, clean water, good sewage, or even noise level. So as Singapore, in the past, Singaporeans are squeezed like 7 to 10% in the house. So they are immune to noise. But now the new generation is every son and daughter have their own room. So when they grow up, when they have their own house, they are very sensitive to noise. So now a lot of noise complaint. So this is about a moving target that we always need to cater as planners. Another thing is to have clean and healthy ecosystem. Is there fish in your rivers? Is there birds in your jungle? Is there wild animals? I think most of the countries here are more blessed than Singapore. You have real forests and big forests where you have a lot of animals. But now is how do you keep sustaining it and protecting it? And lastly, it's about resilience to environmental risk. With global warming, with the rise of the tide, with change of weather, how is your country or how is your city responding to that change? Here is where we try to encourage people that actually a lot of people think that urban development and green cover or green usage is, people always think that you always cut away the forest and build a city. But in Singapore, for example, in 1986, we have 2.7 million people. Our green cover is only 35%, 36%. But in 2010, when our population is almost doubled, we have actually increased the amount of green. So if you are really interested in greening, there's a MIT study, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. There's this study about greening, but they are very smart. Imagine again going to a few thousand cities to ask about their greening, and how do they find out? So it's very hard. It's not easy to use satellite, because satellite, all these things is quite expensive. So they are very imaginative. They actually have a computer system to analyze the Google street photo. So they actually take every Google street photo in that city, and then they have a